Hey everyone. I was trying to get some of the trying to get some of the shows I saw on George Zimmerman today. I had doctor's appointments today. I was in between watching some of them. Um, First of all, what gets me is that the defense is trying to throw in the drug analyst's charge in there, saying trayvon martin was on drugs, but the problem is because George Zimmerman said this dude looks suspicious. He looks like on drugs. It's nighttime. How can he see Trayvon Martin portray him as a drug person? It's pitch black. You know, how in the world he can assume that he's on drugs? You can't tell because it's pitch black. Especially with his eyes, you gotta see if his eyes were bloodshot, making wrong type of body moves, but he didn't say what kind of body moves he made that night. He just says he looks suspicious. I think he's on drugs. So how could George Zimmerman say that he didn't know exactly if Trayvon Martin was on drugs? Um, that's the question. How could he say that? He didn't know. Honestly, he made up that lie. He made up that story. But I found something. I went back and tried. George Zimmerman was on a drug too that night. Performance impairment. The same cannot be said for George Zimmerman because according to the paramedics report, uh, violent, violent, violent nature, neighborhood watch captain was on prescription drugs. Trazepam reports. Trazepam is also known as Restore. Is known as cause insomnia and anxiety. Now he was on drugs that night. How could he can tell? But that's not. Defense didn't want to put that in because he's on drugs. He's on trazepam. Um, there's a lot of other medicines that it seems like there's a gap here. It's missing here. Zimmerman was on drugs with violent side effects when he killed Trayvon Martin. So, um, yeah, why didn't they didn't want they're going after Trayvon Martin, making everything it's his fault. But George Zimmerman um, was on Restore. There's a lot of side effects with Stole. Now, um, what other medicines does he did take that night? Because one, um, let me get here. What's the side effects of it of this medicine? It's no Restore. It's just come on. You're just picking on the defense is picking on Trayvon Martin, and defense just um, trying their best. And Railroad the prosecution. The prosecution didn't get this because they tried, but the defense told them that's not going to happen. We're not putting that in. Yeah, you should put that in because if you're going to do this towards Trayvon Martin of getting that drug, he had some marijuana in his system. So why not put this side effects in on George's side? Because he wasn't paying. He was not paying attention at all. Now let's see here. Let me get looking up here. I'm having a little computer problem, but I did see other problems today that the husband and wife, especially the air marshal. Okay, now the air marshal heard him screaming. This is supposed to be his best friend. He didn't say nothing about that night. Well, that sounded like George out there. Why didn't he go out there and help? He was the United States Air Marshal. Why didn't he go out there to help? That's a good question. His wife wanted to, but why didn't he? He told his wife to stay. That's the same thing. His wife, the Air Marshal wife said, that's Georgie. Well, when the prosecution came up with a new one, of course, the defense is trying to hint this is George on this 911 call, but the prosecution wasn't going to say anything until idiot, dumbass, Mark Romero said something. Then they'll put, okay, this is George. This is George. Keep in mind that was kind of a hint. This is George. Remember, say it's George. And she says, I don't lie. Well, she kind of lied because of one, she didn't know what George sounded like when screaming. Even her husband said the same thing. He's got a deep voice. That's George screaming. Now, come on. Then, when I was at my doctor's office, I was watching Air Marshal's wife. Her eyes were just moving all over the room. Facial, it's like she's nervous. Yeah, I can understand that. But she's not telling the truth. She's kind of lying. Even about the gun. Why is the gun on the right hand side and he's down with the left hand? But the guy says, well, he has to learn how to shoot with both hands. Now, if George has both hands fighting, he's the one touched the gun. And somehow, what? Stop yelling? Yeah, well, that voice doesn't even match with George at all. So, the defense is telling, that's what the defense is telling, did the same thing with George Zimmerman's mother. That's why he went out of the room and tell her, you need to tell the jury that's your son. And plus, his uncle never heard him screaming before. His mother never heard him screaming before. So, what's the real truth? Trayvon Martin mother was right to the point. Because she stayed on the track, she stayed even, she stayed focused. She heard her son before screaming. And nobody can say that. I never heard George scream like that before. So, somebody on George's side's lying. If they never heard of George screaming before, you would think he got that voice screaming. It wasn't George. I had a guy who left a message for me here. He said, "Why would George be screaming? He had a gun all that time." And plus, if George had the bullet in the round ready to shoot at anything, that gun should be on safety. That gun wasn't even on safety. If he pulled that gun out, that gun wasn't even on safety. And he was worried about being hurt, beaten up. He wouldn't have had time to take the safety off that gun. So he already had that gun ready to shoot anybody, in the bullet in the chambers at the same time. Now, the physical evidence, they're trying to say that on trayvon martain are we're changing our theories of how long trayvon martin's alive, and other items of proving that we saw something else. But George, like I said, George said he flipped him over on his stomach. He lunged at him to make sure he didn't move. He didn't last no 1 to 10 minutes. He lasted only a half, because once George got his butt on top of trayvon martin, all the air went out. There was nothing left. He had no air to breathe because George was smothering him to death, face down the ground. And that's why he didn't live. So, the defense is trying their darnest to come up a way to make sure George stays out of jail and doesn't get charged for second-degree murder. The judge should not put the drugs that was analyzed in trayvon martin, saying he had drugs. That should stay out. The jury doesn't need to see this, doesn't need to hear this. Now, here's the side effects of that medicine that George took that night, but nobody wants to mention he took that night. Now, the side effects is weak or shallow breathing, fast or pounding heartbeats, confusion, slurry speech, unusual thoughts and behavior, hesitation, aggravation, thoughts of suicide or hurting themselves, or reckless muscle movement in the eyes, tongues, jaws, or neck, or pelvis. skin. Now, I would say if it was running, he took that, he'll have difficulties of breathing because he was running fast or pounding heartbeat. He was running. Well, he's not supposed to be running with this medicine. Now, confusion. Well, there's the confusion right here with George. There's the part. Confusion. Unusual thoughts or behavior. I know that's kind of like you're like want to kill yourself, but think of it a different way of the confusion part. He's seeing something different when in the videos he's saying he was getting his head pound several times. Well, that's the unusual thought or behavior. The confusion goes with that. Now, reckless muscle movements in the eyes. Was his eyes twitching? Or what? But he's not supposed to be driving. He's nothing. He's not supposed to be driving at all. This may cause you dizzy or drowsy, cause temporary blurry vision. Do not drive mechanically, and do not do any activities. So, if he took that medicine that night, he's not supposed to be driving at all. And no activities, but once he starts, I don't know. He's not supposed to be taking anything and not supposed to be driving. So, confusion, blurry. If he had eye problems, seeing things, I don't know, because it's just something he should have done. Blurry vision, temporary blurry vision. If the confusion, that's like I said, the confusion. This is where the confusion comes in. Fast or pounding heartbeats, shallow breathing. If he took that medicine, he wasn't there. Or he had more medicine than what he's supposed to have. If he has that problem of anxiety, what other medicine did George Zimmerman have that night? Like I said, one, he's not supposed to be drinking. If he drink alcohol with this medicine, it can have a reaction to it. Anxiety attacks, confusion. That's where he can't tell from what was real that night. So I'm thinking they should put what medicines he took that night. What did he say to the paramedics that night? What medicines he took that night? Put that in, because it seems he's confused with his stories. Well, that's about it. Let me know. Talk to you later. Bye now.